It is no use saying, "We are doing our best." You have got to succeed in doing what is necessary. Winston Churchill giving lessons in leadership.
Hello and welcome to the show. Colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. This week we debate leadership. Be careful what you wish for, Boris.
Yes.
Indeed. Now, Boris Johnson has attacked Theresa May's Brexit, saying she had wrapped a suicide vest around the British Constitution and handed the detonator to Brussels. Many people believe that his comments were disgusting and, in fact, completely outrageous. But others have just simply said this is his technique to challenge for the leadership. Yes, not just to take over the Conservative Party, to be Prime Minister. But is this a wise move? Maybe being the leader is not something that actually is for everybody, and perhaps it's a poison chalice. Well, with me today is a leader, yes, a man who is a pillar of the community, a leader in the community, and that is Clergyman Pete.
Yep.
So, Clergyman Pete, being a leader requires many different attributes. Do you believe that, let's start with Boris Johnson, is he the man to get us out of this mess with the Brexit issue and even pave the way for Britain to be a great nation once again?
Well, the thing is about leaders is there's one crucial thing that they all need, and that is followers. And what Boris Johnson can give to this situation is the ability to have people follow him. I mean, he has that sort of that elusive characteristic of charisma, which to some people he would seem like some sort of bumbling buffoon who prey to his own lusts and desires, has no clue really what's going on apart from him.
I think you probably summed him up.
But on the other hand, he does seem to be very popular with the rank and file of the Tory party. So it's possible that he may be able to lead the Conservative Party and enough of the country such that he gets a strong backing for whatever negotiations he's doing. And he has some understanding of the importance parts of what we need from Brexit negotiation, from his taking the side of the Leave campaign during the referendum build-up. So I would say I'm not against him being leader. I think that there are more qualified candidates in terms of their understanding of the issues. But that's not what leadership is all about.
Exactly.
The question is not has he got what it takes necessarily, but does what he want to take, what leadership would throw at him. Once you go to that position of leadership, you are the one responsible. Things take on a different complexion. And although there were other issues in play at the time, he did back away from vying for the position of Prime Minister earlier. So is there a question mark against whether he when it comes to it, will have a strong enough personality to deal with the criticism that comes his way from being leader?
Well, that's the point, because once you take on the mantle of being a leader, you've got to have all the attributes to help manage the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Now, I know that we started with politics, but of course, in business, you need many different skills. You need diplomacy, of course, you need commercial acumen, but you have to relate to your audience. And of course, the question here is that if you're too extreme in your views, that you will certainly get a following. Certainly, but you will also get many enemies. But when you're perhaps in the shadows and just barking out their criticism, it might seem like a simple and easy thing to do, to just criticize a leader. Theresa May, for example, the leader at the moment, is seen actually as being in a very weak position, partly because of the political differences that she's had recently and some of the bad decisions that have been taken. So therefore, she's seen as now as a weak leader, but ironically was seen as a very strong one when she took over the role to begin with. Now, I just wonder whether Boris Johnson has the right attributes. Sometimes when you're in the corridors of power, there's lots of backstabbing that can go on. It does remind me a little bit, sort of Shakespearean thoughts here. So, Mr. Johnson, just think of it from this point of view of what you might potentially take on. Here's a little poem just to get some thoughts. It's called Caesar Salad. How leadership is a dish served cold. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Bring food for thought to savour for years. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your nose. Smell the fruits of success where leadership grows. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your eyes. Your salad days are over, so it's time to look wise. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your lips. A taste for revenge means you've had your chips. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your brain. With hump pie on my plate, the vegetables rain. Yes, Boris Johnson, are you one of those little vegetables that might rise to the surface on the plate
Yes.
and actually become one of the great leaders? I doubt it. I mean, my worry here for the nation, let alone, of course, for the Conservative Party and for anyone else associated with Brexit, Europe, and in fact the world, the idea of Boris Johnson being the leader of the United Kingdom and Donald Trump being the leader of the United States of America and Kim Jong-un being in North Korea, I just wonder what on earth we might serve up for the world. This could be a cocktail for disaster, surely.
Yes. I mean, those three together would, I think, make a great comedy trio, but
yes,
that's not quite the same thing as leading countries with the ability to fire off nuclear weapons. Yes, the Three Stooges.
I remember that.
Now, this chap, Tom Tugendhat, I don't quite know how to pronounce his name. I've only ever seen it written down, never heard anyone say it. He has a background. I believe back at university he studied Islamic studies, so he has some sort of knowledge of Islam and the drive to suicide for jihad. He has criticised Boris Johnson. Going back to the Boris Johnson issue, we see Boris Johnson vying for leadership and yet saying that Theresa May has wrapped her suicide vest around the UK Constitution. And what Tom Tugendhat has said is that this is extremely offensive because I know people who were killed by suicide bombs. And this makes me wonder about him reacting in that manner is what you might call predictable, humorless, pompous, what you'd expect from the Tory party. Whereas Boris Johnson's use of hyperbole or hyperbolic metaphor, like wrapped a suicide vest around, it is more effective. It gets across the point, and it also gets across one of the problems we're saying. You think, oh yes, people coming in with to commit suicide and blow people up is an issue that could be made worse by having soft borders in the EU. So I think that in this case we see Boris Johnson using leadership skills. Now you say that you were saying that in business there's a tremendous cause for leadership. And I think, however, it's possibly different there. That once you get out of the democratic situation, a politician has to try and please people. A business leader has to please some people, but not all the people. So it's a different sort of skill, isn't it?
Of course.
Now in churches, which is my field of what I was going to say of expertise, but what I mean is of experience. That's where I've been working for some years in leadership of a local church. What we see is that as soon as you try and make it a democratic process, some churches are more democratic than others, by which I mean more votes are taken. I know democratic really you mean the whole people, the demos being the people. While in some churches it is the whole membership who vote. In my own style of church, the Church of England church, it's just a small group. It's a committee set up called the Parochial Church Council. They have quite a lot of sway, but the vicar can make most decisions, and is just, he has supervision, but he can make decisions. And in some independent churches, it's simply the leader or pastor who can make decisions, present his vision for how the company's, the church is going to go, and then people will either get behind it or not. So it's not voting on each, certainly not voting on each issue, but it's not even a vote on whether he's suitable. He's given the job, and he's got to go a long way before he be sacked. And this means that there's a possibility of having good leadership, a leader who sells the vision. If people grasp the vision, then he can then truly lead. And even if he makes unpopular decisions, it doesn't matter, because you can't get rid of him without, actually sacking him, having a good reason, other than that you don't agree with him. So the democratic process is difficult in that people are constantly trying to remain popular. And, we had that quote from Winston Churchill about you wanting to succeed. Well, if you do the unpopular things that are going to actually succeed as a leader, you can take people along with you. But if you're having to make unpopular decisions too often, you could be voted out of office. And so there's a pressure not to have true leadership, but rather just try and be popular.
Well, being popular, I agree. You can't always be popular. You do have to make harsh decisions. I'm going to take a business standpoint here. Now, we've seen something happen where leadership has gone wrong. Now, let's turn our attentions to the technology world. Now, we've seen, unfortunately, Elon Musk, who was considered to be a great entrepreneur, somebody who was very much an innovator, somebody, as we now know, went from earning millions from investing and supporting PayPal, getting his dollars from there, and of course moving on to big brands such as Tesla. Now, as we've seen, that any leader can turn, and if, for example, that leader does something that's wrong, it can change the whole perspective on a brand. Now, what's happened with Elon Musk, and please do listen, listeners, just tell us what's going on with Elon Musk, was actually found smoking marijuana live on a web podcast with comedian Joe Rogan. And for some strange reason, which, not surprisingly, was actually illegal in most states in the United States, and in fact it is in many countries, suddenly chose to do this. But as a result, of course, shares plummeted in Tesla. And of course, obviously, this has meant that they've had to sort of part ways with Mr. Musk. But if you have a leader, now leaders come in different forms. Leaders can be leaders of an organization, they can be leaders of a department, but you have to act as an ambassador. And being a leader means that you're representing a cause, you're representing people. And sometimes, maybe when you are a successful leader, such as Mr. Musk, sometimes it can go horribly wrong, can't it? Maybe you just feel as though actually you've got your head in the cloud so much that you've lost all sense of reality. So something has happened where some leaders just lose the plot. And I think that this is where somebody like Boris Johnson, I think, as, shall we say, a representative of a particular movement, which is the Conservative Party, because of his choice of words, because of his behaviour, in my opinion, and I would like to say this is only my opinion, I'm not entirely sure that I would want him to represent Brand Britain. So I know that many people who have a political persuasion might say, yes, because he represents the Conservative Party. No, it's not. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm either Labour or for Labour or the Conservative or the Liberal Democrats for that matter. It's that I'm against him because of his antics, and words do matter. So what you may say and what you may do may be for a particular cause and effect, but nevertheless, they do actually mean something. So by going for leadership, you have to show that you've got that credibility. And that's the thing that worries me about somebody like Boris Johnson. What's going on with Elon Musk? Who knows? Please write him. Do tell us.
I mean, let's broaden this then, as we've talked about politics, which is I suppose the most common subject that we cover on this show, although we cover all different subjects, let me tell you, look through the back catalogue, folks, if you want to see. But your expertise in business and mine, to a certain extent, in the religious and church world. And the Church of England is where I work at the moment, and the sort of head, a sort of first among equals, is how they describe him, of the Church of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury. At the moment, Justin Welby, he is showing what many commentators have described. He's showing managership instead of leadership.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've spoken about this before, but what would you say then? What's the difference between a leader and a manager? I think they're right. I can see intuitively. I can see they've got something right. But what is the difference between a leader and a manager?
Well, this is how I would see it, and I'm gonna come from it from both a business perspective, and I think it applies elsewhere. But a manager is somebody who operationally, I think, is able to be efficient, can control and manage people, processes, and systems, and that principle of efficiency is critical. You need integrity, of course, but a leader is somebody who has a vision, somebody who can set strategy, somebody who can pave the way short, medium, and long term. And as you know, on the Mark and Pete show, we think both short, medium, and long term. And we think the long term strategy is crucial. And so a leader is somebody who can act with particular behaviors. They act as an ambassador. They are somebody who people can follow, but have also the skills to adapt, meaning that they can talk to people at different levels. They can talk to other leaders, but at the same time, they have empathy with people that perhaps either voted for them or perhaps they report to. Yes. And there's a big difference between being a manager and being a leader. And I think that this is where the "be careful what you wish for" principle comes in, which is the whole basis of this show. Yes. Because if you have those managerial skills, then that's great. You are well placed in certain areas. And that doesn't mean to say that you're being a failure simply because you're not a leader. Yes. It's just that that's where you are best placed because of your skill sets or your qualifications. But there are some people who have that ability to identify how to navigate the turbulent waters in which they have to navigate through turbulent times, economies, social issues. And those are the things that I think that we, certainly if we take either in look at America and we look at Britain, where are the social architects of today? What I see some very good managers, but I don't see those people who have the visions that we once saw in the past. Yes. So if we take Britain, for example, and we look at Clement Attlee's government in the late 40s, the vision that he had about the welfare state, that was very clear.
Extremely clear,
I go as far as to say, not that I agreed with it, but Margaret Thatcher, the vision that she had for Britain was very clear and distinct.
Both of them.
We have a muddled mess at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, yes, both of those leaders were very clear. Whether or not I would say I mainly disagree with both of the visions, but that's not the point. They were good leaders because they had a vision. And I think that's the managers becoming leaders ends up being a mess because of concentrating. I mean, you can put it like this: you end up. This is simplifying it, but it's like you concentrate on the detail and miss the big picture. In the church context, there's been a big problem within the Church of England, but I think in most of the mainline churches of appointing people as ministers who, in business terms, would be good in HR and maybe good in management, but are not leaders. And the problem is that the role does demand that. It demands that someone can do everything, or, and this is the crucial thing, delegate most of the role. And leave the leadership role. And that's what you should do.
I'm going to give you an example of someone who we all know and love, who is a great leader. And I know that I'm coming from a business perspective, but I'm now going to throw it into a religious perspective, and that's Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ wasn't a manager. He was a visionary. He brought the vision of God's will to the people. And that is a very good distinction between somebody who can just simply manage the day-to-day operations, but somebody who can act as a leader and is brave enough to take on those big challenges. I'd like to, I know we're coming to the end of the show here, but just to
Yes.
sort of wrap this up about, what makes a good leader, but just from a religious point of view, what's your thoughts around that?
About Jesus Christ.
Indeed.
Yep, I know him and love him. I think you're right there. But that's sort of the crucial thing. In fact, we could say that Jesus Christ is the archetype of what we've been talking about. He, possibly the greatest leader, I would say the greatest leader ever, in that he had that vision, he sold it, he started a movement, people got behind what he said, he had great integrity, but he did divide between right and wrong, gave people their sort of operating instructions, the basis of what they were to do. But the management of it was delegated to leaders, to pastors, prophets, evangelists, people who were set in place. I would agree that he was a great leader, but look at the cost. I mean, the premise of this is be careful what you wish for.
Yes, exactly.
Jesus had to pay a great price, and I think a great toll is taken. Maybe not crucifixion, but when you take on that role of leadership, it's draining. You can't see. There's nothing tangible that you can see, but that is affecting you. But there's nothing tangible. Well, there was in crucifixion, but there may be nothing tangible that's affecting you, that's harming you. But leadership itself is draining. We see what happens to prime ministers of this country, presidents of the US. Just after a few years, they age 20 years, it seems. So, whoever you are, Elon Musk, Boris Johnson, getting into that position of leadership, be careful what you wish for. But if there's nothing else you can do, if you are a leader, I guess you just have to do it. And if the vision is strong, your passion for that vision is strong, then go for it. Because I would say being a successful leader and making a difference, I mean, there's nothing better, is there? That's what, if you could be in that position. For myself, I would say that's a life worth living. So go for it, Boris. Go for it.
Well, there you go. Well, listeners, what do you think? I mean, we've talked about leaders on different fronts, those who seem to be vying for the leadership and those that perhaps are struggling with it. Why not get a little bit more information? Log on to markandpete.com and find out a bit more. Listen to some of the podcasts which touch on this and many other subjects. So thanks for joining us today, and join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.